Jesus Trilogy, Book 1, The Four Messiahs, Chapter 46. Why do we always have to go to Jerusalem every year, Dad? Rachel asked. She had grown into a tall 15-year-old with beautiful long black waist-length hair and dark eyes. Her eyelids were graced with long dark lashes and her eyebrows formed a kind of inverted chevron, accentuating her stunning appearance. Joseph was very proud of her. She had the looks of her mother, for whom she was named. Rachel and Mary got along famously, though she didn't understand her younger brother. Jesus was always either studying or playing football. He had no special girl, and Judas, Johnny, and Barabbas were his close friends. Judas made a pass at Rachel once. She threatened to punch him out, and he knew she would. She was a physical fitness nut. The love of her life was Jeremy, a senior and captain of the football team. He was huge, 6'3" and 245 pounds. He played center. The senior team went through the season undefeated, but lost in the semifinals of the Judean playoffs in Capernaum. Jeremy wants me to go to the sea with him this weekend. Can I, Dad? She flashed her father a sweet smile, knowing full well it wouldn't do any good. We all go as a family, Joseph said sternly. Jed and Josh don't have to go. It's not fair, she retorted, her pretty face contorted into a pout. Jed's in college, Josh is working in Megiddo. Still not fair. I know, but we still have to go. There is no choice in the matter. Are you packed? Yes, I'm packed, she said with disgust in her voice. Mary called to the bedroom. Ready? Yes, baby. Where's Jesus? She said, picking up her bag. Probably studying his scroll, Rachel said, contempt in her voice. That's enough, young lady, Joseph chastened her. Then he said, Jesus, time to go. Coming, father. His politeness drove Rachel crazy. Joseph slung the saddle over Chester, now a little slower than when he took them on the long road to Egypt. The sun was higher in the sky than Joseph had hoped, almost 9. It was a 4-day journey to Jerusalem. They left Monday. They would be there in time for the festival, which began Friday. The crowds would be enormous, but it was what they did every year. All those in good standing in the church would go. After Mary and Joseph's troubled beginnings, they wanted nothing more to besmirch their reputation. The old guard in the church still remembered, but generally they were accepted warmly. It was usually warm for April, but they made the trip in 4 days, arriving late Thursday afternoon. The line entering the gate was still long, even by 6 p.m., so Joseph suggested they head down to Bethlehem. They were staying the weekend with Mary's friend, Joanna, now married to a Roman major, George. Joanna had written and invited them to stay with her and the major on the weekend. The sun was setting as they entered the Bethlehem gate. They would never get into Jerusalem until very late, so they would try the old King's Inn. There was no room. There was always the stable. Both Joseph and Mary had long before learned that God would always provide. As Mary and Joseph walked through the old Bethlehem gate, their eyes met and locked. Wonderful flashbacks went through both their minds. They had not been in this town for 12 years, but the memories were as vivid as if it had been all yesterday. As they headed down the street, things seemed much the same. Little towns changed much more slowly than big ones. Look, Joseph, Mary exclaimed. There it is, Joseph said. There's what? Jesus asked. There's the place where you were born in, Mary said. You're not serious, Jesus said. Yep, that's the place, Joseph answered. That dump, Rachel said. No wonder he's turned out to be the way he is. It's funny you're still alive, little brother. She pinched Jesus hard on the arm. Ouch, he said. Mom, why does she always have to do that? Rachel is Rachel's son, Joseph said, trying to avert a sibling confrontation. Mary's mouth was still agape as she stared at the end. It was all run down, weeds in the yard and paint peeling from the stucco walls, but they saw a light, and as Joseph led the group up to the door and knocked, a woman's voice answered from inside. What do you want? We're full. Mary immediately recognized Florence's voice. She would never forget it. Joseph said loudly through the door, Do you have any room? Mary stood in front of him. The door opened a crack, and the woman said, We don't have... She squinted in the dim light, then she put her hand to her mouth. It can't be. It's you. It's... Mary and Joseph. Mary helped her, and this little, well, not so little Jesus. And these two are Rachel and Jennifer, Mary said. I can't believe it, she began to cry with joy. Mary put her arm around her, and they all went into the lobby. Florence regained her composure and said, How are you? But the emotions took over again. Who is that woman? Rachel asked Jesus. I don't know, but he did conclude that this must be the place where he was born. He and his mother had talked a lot in the last few months. The fact he was supposed to be the Messiah had hit him very hard. He just wanted to play football and be normal like the other kids. Maybe he would become a school teacher. But this Messiah business was tough to swallow. It would certainly mark him as an outcast, a rebel. It would make him different from his friends, and he couldn't bear it. He would have to go to war to fight the Romans. Jesus hated fighting. He never accomplished anything. Look at his cousin Johnny. He was always fighting, but it never got him anything, only more fights. Jesus considered himself a lover, not a fighter. He considered himself in love with Mary of Magdala, though he had never even asked her for a date, much less a kiss. He deeply wanted to do both. Maybe Johnny was the Messiah. He had even indicated as much a couple of times, but Jesus had finally gone and talked to old Zach, and Zach confirmed Jesus' worst fears. He, Jesus, not Johnny, was to be the Messiah. Johnny was only to be the messenger, but Jesus remained skeptical. I'm sorry, I have no more rooms, but you can stay with me. Victor died last year, and the taxes keep going up. The Roman collector told me I have one more month or I must get out. Mary, Mary and Florence reminisced as Joseph unloaded Chester and got the kids bedded down. All three were exhausted and were out like lights. Mary and Florence talked for an hour, filling one and another with details of their lives since the wonderful night 12 years ago. Joseph mostly listened and wondered what he could do for this woman who had done so much for him and Mary. Finally, the two women became weary. You two take my bed. I'll sleep with the kids, Florence said. No, we couldn't, Mary said. Joseph said, Florence, we'd like to sleep in the stable. That is, if it's okay. Oh, no, you should take my bed. As she spoke, she realized they really did want to sleep out there. Well, take a couple of blankets and watch for the horses. They can get through the partitions now that Victor isn't here to make repairs. Her voice broke. We will. Thanks again for the hospitality, Mary said, squeezing Florence's hand. Mary and Joseph walked hand in hand out to the back stable. Florence watched them, tears streaming down her face, but her tears were both happy and sad. Happiness for Mary and Joseph, and sad because she missed Victor. Mary and Joseph walked through the back door into the stable, and there they saw the place where, 12 years ago, a night of miracles took place. A night that would forever change the world. They tied Chester up in the stall next to where Jesus had been born. No, it can't be, Mary said. Can't be what? Joseph said, smoothing out the blankets. Chester. See, I think he's smiling. He remembers. Joseph looked and gave Mary a playful look of skepticism. Well, he saw a great show 12 years ago. Shall we give him another? Joseph said. Let's, Mary said as she swooned into his strong arms. They were both exhausted from the trip, but the amazing power of true love took over. Their passion reached the heights it had not reached since that night on the seashore in Egypt, 12 years ago. Dad, Mom, wake up, Jesus called. What time is it? Joseph asked, rubbing sleep out of his eyes. It's 9. We got to get going. Jesus was not only polite, but very persistent. He and his two sisters were up, and Florence had fixed them breakfast. Get Chester packed, son, Joseph said as he untangled himself from his lovely, sleepy wife. Okay, Dad, he said, and went back down the hall whistling. He was anxious to go to Jerusalem. He had never been there before. He wanted to see the sights, meet the people, and most of all, he wanted to sit down with some of the great scribes and learn from them. His long talks with his mother, since he had learned that he was to be the Messiah, had aroused his curiosity. He knew it could not be quenched without much more information he hoped would be obtained in Jerusalem. He still didn't fully believe he was the promised one, but if it were true, he must know how to proceed with his life. Should he join the army or go to college? Jesus was beginning to realize, even at age 12, the enormity of such a task. He would have to raise an army and lead it against the invincible Roman war machine. But there was something more. There were more goals to be attained, and he had come across the word eternal several times. An eternal kingdom. Rome had been in existence for more than 2 centuries, but he wasn't sure it would last forever. There were constant challenges to Rome's supremacy from the Greek rebels, and Egypt was always a force to be reckoned with. He was sure there was more to the Messianic kingdom than met the eye, but he didn't know what. Maybe he'd find out today. The excitement of this possibility made his hand shake as he loaded Chester. "Ready, son?" Joseph asked. "Almost." Jesus threw on the last pack and hoisted his little sister onto Chester. Chester gave a snort, objecting to the added weight. "Let's go, baby," Joseph called. Mary and Florence, still talking a mile a minute, walked out to the front gate. "Florence, Joseph and I want to repay you for all you did for us that night." "No, no, it was an honor to have helped such a wonderful people and to bring such a fine lad into the world." "I insist," said Mary. Despite her sweet nature, she could be very firm when she wanted to be. "Yes, we're coming back on Sunday night, and if it's okay, we'll stay here, and Monday we'll help you clean and fix up everything. We'll repaint the house so you can sell it and find a nice new home." Florence began to cry. "I couldn't. It's done. We're going to come back on Sunday night, and if it's okay with you, we will do this," Mary said. She gave Florence a hug, and they set out for the City of Kings.